Guy gives the guy a 10-year loan, and therefore the 10-year loan is due after Shemitah, obviously, because the Shemitah is every 7th year. The question is, does Shemitah take off the loan or not? So the Gemara originally wanted to bring a proof from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah seems to indicate that Shemitah will not take off the loan, because the Mishnah says that the witnesses only have to pay. The difference is when they framed the guy and they said the loan was due 30 value between a person having a loan for 30 days, whole amount of the loan, but they wanted the guy to lose the whole amount because the borrower technically would not have to pay after 10 years, according to the opinion that says that the loan is off after 10 years. And so if it's true that the loan will be off after 10 years, so when the witnesses were framing the guy and they said it was a 30-day loan, they were in essence saying that he has a responsibility for the loan, instead of being off the hook if it would have been a 10-year loan. And so why does he have to pay just the difference in the 30-day loan and a 10-year loan? Shouldn't the witness have to pay for the whole value of the loan, because technically they want him to obligate the loan, the face value of the loan, but the face value of the loan would have been off. So the Gemara says no proof. The Gemara says that maybe the case of the Minas, but he lent with a mashkin. If there was collateral, if there was a mashkin taken, or the shvius, the shemitah, the 7th does not take off a loan that the lender had accepted collateral for that loan. But once he accepted the collateral, it's as if in a certain sense that he's already collected the loan. It's not that it's outstanding, so even though technically the loan is due before the shemitah, or the loan is due after the shemitah in this case, and it's as if the lender already collected the loan, because he has that collateral, and therefore, I wonder if the collateral, the English word collateral, has anything to do with collect. That's already, in a certain sense, he has some sort of collection already, for the fact that he already taken the collateral before, at the time of the lending. And that's what we said in the Gemara. And then the Gemara now has another version of this discussion. The Gemara on Gimel of Beis, I think that's where we're up to. The Gemara says, we are in Gimel of Beis 3b. We are Ika de Amri. Ika de Amri, is that the right place? Does it look like we're in the right place? Sometimes it's a hard to if we said it or not. Ika de Amri, we're on 3b. 3b1. Bottom Ika de Amri, bottom paragraph in the left column. Ika de Amri say the following version of Gemara. They said the following: Amar Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel that they have a different recording of what Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel. That their recording is that he says that Shemitah does not take off a loan that's past 10 years. The first recording of the Gemara was that they had that Shmuel said Shemitah would take off the loan if the loan is a 10-year loan, and it's due to the Shemitah. The second recording was that they had others say, Omar Yehuda Mavet. Now it could be, it's possible that the rabbi changed his mind, that at one point of his life he might have held one way, or at other point of his life he might have held differently. So we have two versions of what the rabbi said. Some say that Amar Yehuda Shmuel Hamalves Chaver Shanim, someone lends his friend for 10 Shemitah 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 does not take off the loan. Afagav the egos, even though eventually the Torah says, if you lend somebody money and you're not supposed to go, and then Shemitah, you can't go, because Shemitah came, because of Shemitah, you can't go ahead and claim that money. So even though after 10 years, he's going to come claim the money, and Shemitah would already have passed. So why is he allowed to go ahead and claim the money after the 10 years if already it was Shemitah? And the Torah says that you can't come to collect because Shemitah has come. So even though later on he's going to come to the situation of you would say he shouldn't be able to collect, but that's not a problem. Why not? Because even when there's a Torah, you can't come to collect a loan because Shemitah has come. It's only a loan that you would have come to collect because it was past due. So therefore, the Torah says, don't come to collect that loan, but something is stopping you. What's stopping you? Because Shemitah. But if Shemitah never came yet, the loan wasn't due yet. So the case of the Torah, when the Torah says, don't come to collect the loan, it's not talking about the case when the loan was a 10-year loan. Because when it was because when it was a 10-year loan, Shemitah did not stop you from coming to collect the money. You couldn't collect the money in the 7th year, not because it was Shemitah. You couldn't come to collect the 7th year because the loan wasn't due. So when the Torah says, don't come to collect the money because Shemitah, it's talking about the loan was already past due. The loan wasn't past due. That's not the case where the Torah says, don't come to collect. So Shemitah will not override a 10-year loan. That's the halacha. Any loan, let's say, during Shemitah year, will Shemitah take off the loan? Halachically, when does the Shemitah take off the loan? The loan gets released the last moment of this year. The last moment of this year, Erev Rosh Hashanah is coming, Rosh Hashanah 5783 coming up, even though we're in a Shemitah year. So you would say, Rabbi, if you're in a Shemitah year, all the loans that were passed through should be released. The law is no. There's a special law that says on it. At the end of the 7th year, this law kicks in that the loan went labor at the end of Shemitah. Even though Shemitah is now in Eretz Yisrael, they're not planting, they're not harvesting, they're not plowing, they're not treating it that everything is supposed to be hefker, it's supposed to be available for everybody. But there is nevertheless, when it comes to the loans being released, it's released at the end of the year. The end of this year, and that's what we're going to be making. We spoke about the prusbal, right? That the people go ahead. If people do not want loans, they're outstanding, the people owe them to be released. We spoke about there was a takana chachamim that you go in front of a bezdin, a court, or some do it in front of depending on the situation, which minig of which community, which opinion you follow. Either you go into a court, or you go in front of 3 people, or you go in front of 2 people. Different customs, exactly, and you make a declaration and you sign a document, and that will prevent, and like you're giving over to the court, and your loans, and you have as a result of that to collect the loans. No, you're going to do it this year. You're going to make your prusbal this year. You're going to make the prusbal before it kicks in. The Shemitah would kick in to release the loan. If you want the loan not to be released, if you want your loans to be released, you don't make a prusbal. Good morning, Nathan. You don't make a prusbal. The loans will be released, and the money is off, and that's what the money is released to the borrower. The borrower doesn't have to pay you back. If the loan was due before the end of this year, if the loan was due already past due, Rosh Hashanah this year, any loan that's outstanding is forgiven unless you before Rosh Hashanah comes, you made this prusbal. If you make the prusbal, as we spoke about, the people were. The Torah says, don't refrain from lending. Don't be afraid the Shemitah is going to come. But people started refraining from lending money to the poor people, and the rabbis created this prusbal to ensure that the poor people will be able to have money to borrow, and also to ensure that the rich people will violate the Torah's prohibition refraining from lending because they were concerned that the loan will be released as a result of the Shemitah. Mr. Haber, is that clear? So now the Gemara that's what the Gemara wants to say. When the Torah's prohibition of coming to collect the loan after Shemitah, only if you would have had a right to collect it, but stopping you is the Shemitah. But if you have no right to collect the loan, if it's not due, so I don't have to tell you, don't come to collect this loan for the Shemitah. If the loan is not going to come to collect the loan anyway, it's nothing to do with Shemitah. So the case of the Torah that the Torah says, don't come to collect the loan, has to be talking about when it was already past due. But if it was not past, Shemitah not take off the loan. That's what the Gemara, and we're going to see later on also in the Gemara. If you give somebody a loan and it's not due yet, you have no right to ask them for it back. I mean, you want to ask him what you can tell him, you I gave a loan. I appreciate if you give it, even though we have terms and conditions of the loan is 30 days or whatever it is. If I want to come back a week later, I want to ask him, I would appreciate if you give me back the loan, but I can't claim the loan back. I can't come to court to tell a guy I want the loan is due when it's not due. I can't come. I have no rights to go to say, I'd like to be paid for this loan. Rav Kahana says, Afana Nami Tanina. Rav Kahana says, we also learn like this. And he uses our Mishnah as a support for this ruling, and that's the halacha. Omdim, the Mishnah says by Zomamim, when they frame somebody, Omdim Kama Adam Rotzalitain V'Elef Zuz. We estimate how much a person will be willing to give to have the $1,000 loan in between paying now, having 30 days to pay back, or to have 10 years to pay back. The difference of value on the market, in the non-Jewish world market. Because in the Jewish world market, we can't charge interest as we spoke, but in the non-Jewish world market, there's a value for what's coming to the witnesses were framing the guy. They were saying that you have to pay it back in 30 days instead of 10 years. That's what the value that the witnesses have to pay for framing. So the Gemara makes its case. If you say that Shemitah would take off a loan that's due past Shemitah, let's say a 10-year loan, so then they should have to pay everything. They should have to pay not just the difference value between a 30-day loan and a 10-year loan. They should have to pay the value of the total face of the loan, because the whole loan would have been off. And as a result of their testimony, they wanted to cause the loan to be on. They tested the 30-day loan. So the answer is not necessarily a proof. The case that we're talking about is that when you lend the case of the loan, that you're able to would have been able, that the value of the loan is not off. Maybe that when the loan collateral was given, and therefore because collateral was given to the loan, even the rabbi that says that if you have a loan that's post Shemitah, the loan comes off if it was past 10-year loan, Shemitah, due after Shemitah, but he agrees that if there was collateral, the loan will not go off. So therefore, you can't necessarily bring the case of our Mishnah as a proof against this rabbi, because maybe he would understand that he would explain the Mishnah, maybe he's talking when there was collateral taken. If there's collateral taken, the loan does not go off past Shemitah. The fact that Shemitah takes off a loan, only a loan, there's no collateral. If there was collateral given and before the time of Shemitah, the loan does not go off. But Shemitah only takes off loans that were not collected and due. We said that Shemitah does not, again, we have two opinions in the Gemara. One opinion, Gemara says that Shemitah takes off a loan that's due, even if it's due past Shemitah. We have another opinion, the Gemara says, no, Shemitah will only take off loans that is due before Shemitah. So there's two opinions in the Gemara. The halacha is, we said, it only takes off loans that were due before Shemitah. But the Gemara is trying to defend the opinion that says that Shemitah would take off a loan that's due after Shemitah. It's trying to defend that opinion because our Mishnah seems not to be in sync with that. Because our Mishnah says that a loan that's past 10 years, when the witnesses framed the guy, the loan would not have been off. They would not have to pay the full value of the loan that they wanted to frame it. So the Gemara suggests that the reason why it's not a contradiction to that opinion is because even that opinion that says that Shemitah would take off a loan agrees, even though the loan is due after Shemitah, agrees if there was collateral, Shemitah will not take off a loan that there's collateral. Because in a certain sense, it's like it's collected. So when the Torah says, don't come to collect something, that means if you have nothing on the guy. But if you already have the goods, you have collateral, so it's already collected in a certain sense. Therefore, there's no violation. So that's what the Gemara says. Either you lent with a collateral, or and if you gave your documents, the documents, the loan to the court, once it's already given over to the court before the Shemitah, it's as if it's done deal. It's as if it's collected already. Either you can look at it like it's already collected because the court has it, Or the fact is the Torah is not by only saying that you can't come to collect, but the court there's no if the court collects that's not even though that's would not be there won't be a prohibition. So the Gemara says it's not Malvel and Mashkin. If someone lends on a collateral and there's collateral in the deal, with most of the Bezdin, if you give your documents to Bezdin, ein mashmita. The shmita does not take off the loan, and that's how some explain how the prusbul works. The prusbul is even though you're not giving actual documents of the loan, you're not coming to the court every erev Rosh Hashanah. We're not. Everybody's not bringing their loan documents to the court and giving over to the court. All the lenders are not showing the court and giving over to the court all the documents to people. But some explain that it works with that idea. The same way by giving over your documents to the court, you go in front of a court, you give over the documents, then it's as if it's collected because of the power of the court. It's like it's a done deal. So some say that's how the prusbul works. You go in front of three people, or some which act like that court. The rabbi said, if you do that, that's sufficient, and the loan won't go off. Or if you go over two witnesses that they act as that, they are acting like agents of the court, so to speak. These two witnesses, and therefore that would work as well. So depending on whatever you have to look at the custom of your community, how they do the prusbul process. So if you look, Mr. Haber, is that in this process they do in the community? You've seen the prusbul, right? Okay.
So if you have a collateral.
If you have a collateral, someone owes you money, and then you have collateral on it. So that's a good question. So again, that's a good question. I mean, for sure, if up to the value of the collateral will not come off the loan. But let's say the collateral is not the value of the loan, then that would be a good question to look up. Maybe that difference between the collateral and it might maybe that amount might go off. Let's say if it's a $10,000 loan, it's a $5,000 collateral. So for sure, the $5,000 collateral, $5,000 alone will not go. The question will be what's the other $5,000? Because it's like you have $5,000 collected. I don't know if it does any help to the other. A borrower always has to have intentions to pay back a loan. A borrower, if he doesn't have intention, he can't borrow money if he doesn't have intention to pay back the loan. You can't do such a thing. You have to be upfront with the guy. If you want to borrow money, if someone wants to borrow money, he's not confident that he can pay back. He has to say to the guy, could you lend me money? I'm not confident I'm going to pay it back. Would you want to give it to me a loan anyways? You can make it, but I can't go to a guy and say I'm borrowing money with the intention, if I don't have the clear intention of paying back. I can't, that would be the lender has the right to do whatever. If the lender wants to say, have his money, I'm lending you the money, but to himself, he said, the borrower is not allowed to say, if I default, the guy will write off as a dog. The borrower cannot say that. He can't do that. Borrower cannot go ahead and take a loan from a wealthy person saying with the intention, you know what? If I don't pay back, he'll write it off as charity. That's not allowed. The only one who could do that is the lender can have that mindset, but not the borrower. The borrower has to have a mindset. He's called Loveh Rasha V'lo Yishalem. The pasuk calls someone who borrows and doesn't pay back. It's called a Rasha. Now, I presume that's referring to someone who doesn't have the ability to pay back, or a person who borrowed with the intention of not paying. Person who really had a mind to pay back and he didn't pay back because the situation changed or whatever it was, I don't think we'll call him a Rasha. But someone who never had proper intention to pay back a loan, he's a Rasha. But you're taking someone's money like it's a masquerade. You're using a loan as a way to go ahead and get money from somebody. And I bet there are people that do that. They say in the name of a loan, give me a loan, and they're not being honest with themselves. They really never intended to pay back the loan. Yes.
Loan, let's say a business money. Successful guy money for a loan, whatever. Guy needed money for a deal or something like that. I lent you money. Yeah, and then the guy who he lent it to maybe had a bad business, something happened, tanked, couldn't pay it back. Can he technically write that and categorize this as that guy?
I would think so. I would think if a guy could check it up, if you lend somebody money, and now the guy owes you the money, and the guy can't pay you back because he really lost money. I would think, I would think you write it off as a tzedakah. I would think you write that off as charity.
So when he left the money, he thought it was lending money.
But yeah, it's true. But now it comes out that it's no longer lending money. The guy's not paying me back. Now, if the guy is not paying me back as a wealthy person who's capable of paying me back and he's not paying me back, I don't know that I can. I don't think I can write it off as charity because he has the ability to pay me back and he's not paying me back. But if he's really sincerely not able to pay me back, so then I should be able to write it off as charity because it's coming out that I lent the guy money, he owes me money, and now I'm writing it off as. But once I write it off, now if he pays me back, if he pays me back at the end, Nathan, then it's no longer. Then I gotta give back the money to charity. You know what I'm saying? Then I gotta give back to charity. Okay, now we have another case of Yehuda Mashmuel. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mashmuel. We are on Gimel and Beis. Mashmuel. Ha'omer lechaveiro almana shelo perteni shviyah. A guy says to his friend, "I'm lending you the money, but on the condition that Shemitah does not take off the loan." That was the terms of the loan. He says, the terms of the loan is that what? Shemitah does not take off the loan. That's what he made the terms. Question is, are these terms binding or not? Does a person have a power to say, I am giving you a loan? The Torah says Shemitah takes off a loan. And I go ahead and I lend you the money and I say, I'm making the terms of it. Shemitah does not take off the loan. So, on paper or orally in front of witnesses, these are the terms. There's no question on the terms of this loan. So Shmuel says the loan, the Shemitah still has an effect. I don't have the ability to go ahead and say, I'm lending you the money with a condition that Shemitah doesn't take off. What do you mean? God says Shemitah takes off a loan. What do you say? It's hurting the borrower, but the borrower accepted the terms. But the terms by itself, the terms don't work. I can't say I'm going to do this, that this should not take effect. I can't say that Shemitah should not. I'm making a condition that Shemitah doesn't take effect. Shemitah takes effect. I don't have the power to say Shemitah doesn't take effect, right? I can't say Shemitah doesn't. We're going to see it. But the Gemara we're going to see a difference. It's all in how you, the verbalization and the terms, what exactly you say. If you say that we'll see the Gemara is going to make a distinction. I don't know if I said it proper. Good morning to Yosef and Sadiq. The Gemara Yosef. If the Gemara if you say that Shemitah should not take effect, I don't have a power to say that. If I say to you, I'm lending you the money that you, the borrower, should not come to collect the money. You, the borrower, should not use Shemitah as a release. That must say is going to be different, because I can make a terms that you could forgive. The borrower could forgive his right. The borrower has a right that the Shemitah takes off the loan. That's a privilege for the benefit of the borrower. Correct? And the Shemitah takes off the loan. So if we want to agree to it, if I come to you, Nathan, and I say, I'm lending you the money that you, the borrower, should not have Shemitah, that Shemitah shouldn't release to you. They shouldn't release, that you use the Shemitah card, the loan. So if you accepted not to use the Shemitah card to release the loan, so then you're, in a sense, you are forgiving you're giving up your right, the Shemitah. If you go ahead and say Shemitah will not, the loan is on the Shemitah, the Shemitah does not take off the loan. It's a fact that Shemitah does take off a loan. I can't create such a fact that's not a true fact. But if I want to say to you that you should not use the Shemitah card, and that means you're forgiving of the Shemitah card. They created an enactment that will encourage the lenders that they should not refrain from lending money.
Goes on to that same situation, if you're not allowing to have this loophole of saying that you can then if you don't allow it, then you're just hurting people who have the potential to be borrowing money. Right?
You're saying this will
This will
help
people.
more loans coming out.
The rabbis should allow support. Why not?
Right, the rabbis only have the power, but it has to have some sort of work within some sort of context. Meaning the rabbis can't just say, even though the rabbis have the greatest intentions that they want people not to violate the Torah, but they can't go ahead and just say something without it working legally as well. They can't. I mean, they're not gonna just want to say Shemitah. If you say the word Shemitah doesn't take off, the loan, the terms of the loan, the Shemitah should not take off the loan. The Shemitah doesn't take off. You're saying the Shemitah will not remove the loan. See, I can't. The rabbi that's the guy is. What I say? But you're right. You can't use the terms of what you said. Meaning, good morning, Mr. Aney. The statement is not a true statement. To say that you could go ahead and make a statement that this loan on the condition Shemitah does not take off the loan, that in itself is not a true statement. You could say that the rabbis could create something in order that Shemitah should not take off the loan. That you could say, but I can't just say that the wording create some sort of wording. Right? Like this. Also, this is an issue also by halachic will. Right? This discussion. If a person says, "I want all my children to inherit equally," so then getting into issues. What's the issue? The Torah did not give. The Torah said if there are boys, the son inherit. The daughter doesn't inherit. She doesn't. What happens to the daughter? That the sons will support the daughter. They'll take care of the daughter, but not usually. But that's what this mean. That meaning she would eat from the. But that's if we live in a time where people are very giving and very. What will happen is that the daughter will eat from the estate, but no, the will to enforce it. Court will be able to force that. What will the father dies, the sons take care of the financials, and the daughter will be eating from the estate. She'll be provided whatever she needs until she gets married. I would think once she gets married, her husband will provide for her. But the men are the breadwinners. They're taking care of the finances. The women are taking care of the finances. They're not taking care of the estate. But they will be what? Supported from the estate. Just like the widow is supported from the estate. Again, the widow's support. What do you say? But again, will be supported from the estate. The daughters are taken care of from the estate, and once they get married, they give a nice dowry towards to encourage her to get married. Nice, the people should want to marry her. So, but if there's no sons, then the daughter gets them. There's no sons, right? If there's no sons, then the Torah says who gets the money? The deceased man brother doesn't get the money. Who gets the money? His daughter gets them. That's when she'll get the money. If she has brothers, if they have sons, so that would be and obviously most probably she'll hire someone to run the estate because she's not the person most probably of experience running an estate. But so therefore a person gets into an issue. There's something called a halachic will. What's just a little background about a halachic will? And anyone ever heard of the idea of a halachic will? Halachic will is that it's all in how the terms are used. A person has the right to gift his daughter what he wants. He could gift his daughter that he could do that. His daughter can get an equal share and everything like the sons. As a gift, no, a gift. He gifts it to her, but as an inheritance, the Torah has certain rules. Who he could make it? The gift could take effect a moment before he passes away. And there are different. Exactly. There's always ways if you do it right. So these are some of and then there are other discussion, other things pertaining to this law. If there's an executive, how that plays a role in a certain sense. But the bottom line is there's a way to do it halachically. But to say if a person goes ahead and says, I want all my children should inherit, like bequeath, so to inherit equally. So that's that text, that language is not in sync with what the Torah says. The Torah does not say everyone inherits equally. The Torah says that boys inherit. and the girl will be taken care of and she'll be supported from the estate. But to say all inherit, so that language is not a, it's not a proper language. To say you want to gift everybody and take effect, whatever, however it's worked out, that's fine, no problem. But if a person uses the word, he's bequeathing, everyone can inherit equally. That's not the way the Torah says it happens. Yes.
This works if you live in like a nice Jewish neighborhood, right? Or how did the court enforce it?
Okay, you always have to, very good. So,
it's no longer, you know.
right, you travel to a Jewish court. There were such things. If they have to travel to a Jewish court, they would travel to a Jewish court.
Yeah, like a morning day.
Right, you travel to a Jewish court, and they would do the law according to the Jewish law.
But let's say the son is not a very good, and you know, I mean,
We deal with, that's the problem. We have a lot of people who don't do the things that they're supposed to do. But the court will do whatever they can, whatever power the court has, But there are that are not doing what they need to do. He gets a double portion, right? Exactly. Now, unless they did a will and they wrote it a different way, if they gifted it before he passed away, so then it was already done before. It was already done before he passed away. You can tell the borrower, I'm giving you this loan. That you could do. That you could do. If you want to say to the guy, that's what the Gemara says. You want to say to the guy, I want you, the borrower, not to use the Shemitah card. And you're acknowledging there is a Shemitah card. You're not saying Shemitah doesn't take off the loan. You're saying the borrower is willing to forgive his, that the Shemitah, that the 7th year will take off the loan. That's going to work. But to say Shemitah doesn't cancel the loan, that I can't say Shemitah. Shemitah cancels the loan. I could say the borrower could let go of my right that Shemitah cancels my loan, and I could say I'm giving it anyway. Again, if the lender said, okay, you know what? The lender could say that to him if the borrower doesn't want to accept it. Now you're asking a good point. The Torah, the borrower. The Torah wants to give the borrower that gift. So let me ask you a question, Dr. Navid. That's the question. You can say a question on the Pruzbal. So Dr. Aney, Mr. Aney, that's what we're going to try to explain to, because we're worried. No. So that's what we need to explain to you, Mr. Aney. Mr. Aney is saying the following: there's the ideal situation, how people would be the ideal thing to do, but then not everyone is ready to do the ideal thing. Meaning, ideally, Hashem wants a person to lend the money, and it's going to be due before Shemitah, and the person's supposed to pay the loan back. It's not like it was due after Shemitah. If it was due after Shemitah, the loan will not go off. It's due before Shemitah. What's the case of the Torah, Dr. Navi? The loan due before Shemitah. And you lent him the money, he's going to pay you back the money, right? It's due before the Shemitah. He's supposed to pay you back the money. But what happened is he didn't pay you back the money. He doesn't have the money to pay back. Now comes Shemitah. So the Torah says, Shemitah not. But I shouldn't refrain from lending him the money. I thought I made up with you. You'll pay me back the money before the Shemitah. So Shemitah should take off. So therefore, I shouldn't be worried. He's excused if Shemitah comes. But what happened was, you know what happened, Mr. Aney? People were thinking like you. They were saying, I'm not lending money. Why? Because they didn't have confidence. Why? They were saying they were not lending the money. They said, I'm afraid if it's close to Shemitah, maybe you're not going to pay me back. And if you don't pay me back, well, what's going to happen? The loan's going to be off. So you don't, but the Torah wants people to lend the money. The Torah doesn't want people to have that mentality. They give him not to pay. What's the case that they give him not to pay, Mr. Davey? When he already was supposed to pay, I mean, you gave him the loan, he was supposed to pay it already. It was already due.
Default, you charge more, you get penalty.
Right, but now who are you lending the money to? What's the case of the Torah? The case of the Torah is that we're looking. The general case is you're lending a poor person. He's a poor person. He needs money. Okay, and you didn't give it as a tzedakah, which you didn't give it as tzedakah. You can write it off at the end as tzedakah, but it might not be a little money. It might also, like you said, how much does the poor person really borrow, generally speaking? In the case of the Torah, most probably is the. I mean, even though it applies to bigger loans as well, but the case of the Torah is the guy's a poor and he's borrowing money. That's the case. He's poor. He's making ends meet. He's able to put himself on his 2 feet. And then the Torah says if it has to be a gift, the Torah said you have to let it be a gift. That's what the Torah is telling you. But if it's a poor person, Mr. Ain't again, that's what the Torah says. If it's a poor person, and the way we saw the Rashi in the Chumash, he explains the case. What is the case of the poor person did not want a gift to begin with? He is the type of person that said, I don't want a gift. I have to have my own honor. I'm no respect for himself. He feels a little embarrassed to take a gift. So the whole loan was given really in a certain sense, but he did not want the gift. And he was hoping that he would be able to make ends meet. And now he can't pay. Now Shemitah came. So we say, and he was due before the Shemitah. So now the Torah says, let it go. Let that loan go.
I don't see anywhere where there's no payment plan.
No, there was a payment plan. I made a payment plan. Again, the payment plan was to pay when due. That's the payment plan.
Yeah,
But that when you borrow money and you give a date, I'm going to pay you by a certain date. There was supposed to be a payment plan that completed by the date of the way. Not that people today, they have payment plans after it's supposed to, right? Then they create the payment plan. The true payment plan is when, what do you say, Nathan? You make the payment plan that it should be finished and completed by the time you do. It's a new mentality. This is an American, this is a Western new idea that we have people, that we have this concept, the whole world is dealing with this payment plan. That it's supposed to, and now they call up the credit card company and make a payment plan. But that's not the way it's supposed to be done. The way it's, what?
You borrow money to the bank, Shemitah, sorry, bye-bye. I like that.
Again, Mr. Aney, if there was collateral, Shemitah doesn't take off the loan. If there was collateral, Shemitah won't remove the loan. So the lender has the ability, what? Take collateral. If you're concerned, you're worried a little bit, lend the money, take collateral on the deal. And then you don't have to worry about Shemitah not going to, what? So the Gemara is, okay, so the Gemara, right, so the Gemara says, again, the halacha will be that we will not charge the witnesses. Again, what's the case? When they framed the guy and they said the loan was going to be a 10-year loan instead of a 30-day loan, what's the case of the question of the framing of the witnesses? If the witnesses framed, and they said it's a 10-year loan instead of a 30-day loan, the halacha is that a 10-year loan, Shemitah will not take off a 10-year loan. Because if it's due per Shemitah, the Shemitah will not take off the loan. So therefore, the witnesses will have to pay the difference between a 30-day loan and a 10-year loan. What the market, what the Wall Street price is, how much a person would be willing to pay to have a 10-year loan over a 30-day loan. But they're not going to pay the face value of the loan. But the face value of the loan would not have gotten off by saying a 10, but the fact that it's a 10-year loan, the 10-year loan will have to be paid since it's due after the Shemitah. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow about people creating certain conditions in terms that if it's not in sync with Torah, how it's you can't make such a condition. Have a great, it's all in the wording. It's all in, and even today.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
But you have a great day, Yosef. The way you word something, it's all there. Look at in the contract, what it meant, and then we work with that. Have a great, if it's done right. But there's also sometimes called the spirit of the law. So the fact that you might have a way to do certain things doesn't mean that it should always be done that way. Because you also, what's the flavor and the spirit of the law as well. Have a great day. Thank you. Great day, everybody. Good day, Mr. Saber. You too.
If, let's say, if you individual, what about if a Jewish business and a Jewish business?
Jew to Jew we're talking about.
You
All
order-
these laws are only Jew to Jew. Jew to
Okay.
Gentile, these laws will not apply.
No, not the Gentile. Like a Jewish businessman, a Jewish business, and a Jewish business person.
Business to business.
Business to business. But all Jews. Any changes or
So the laws will be the same because if it's a loan, a business loan, it also would go off, which means that.
yesterday Fahim was back in the day in the
Old country.
The Christians were allowed to charge interest, which I think they learned from the
They learned from the Bible, right? The Bible, the Torah said.
so they had to get